respect dearly, as I do the Leadership Tomorrow group. And so I even found myself choking up a bit in feeling the love and the passion in the room here today. So you're gonna see it, we're gonna weave something together that we just went through, and we didn't coordinate this. So it's obviously important for society right now. And so we're gonna kind of just go on a bit of a journey together. And as somebody said, Leadership Tomorrow is a journey. There's basically three groups of people in here. There are those that are considering the journey. Those are the people here in the room who raised their hand. Those who have started the journey, those are the people who went through the class. You haven't completed Leadership Tomorrow, you've started your journey. And the third group are the group of people who are well into the journey and are taking the passion and everything that you've learned in Leadership Tomorrow into your community. It's all about impact. Everything is impact now. What has to happen in our community today? And that's where we are. That's the purpose here of Leadership Tomorrow. So I look around the room and I can see close friends. I was in the class of 2016. I see close friends that I've recruited into Leadership Tomorrow, that I brought over to this luncheon many years ago. I see other people that I've interviewed for the classes during the period, including Winston, and I can remember your interview, Winston. It was delightful. And I remember my wife is an Anglophile, and we talked about the passion of everything from your background. But there's other things. There's business people I've done wonderful business with, and our company has done wonderful business with. But there's other things that have happened too. We have an alumni of Leadership Tomorrow, Richard Ward. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey up until this point. And Richard Ward has compiled a book, Living a Richer Life. Now, do you know Antoinette? So there's a couple of us in the room that are featured in this book, and the producer of the book is actually in the room, and I've forgotten your name, and if you don't mind putting your hand up wherever, thank you. So the producer of the book is here, and this is a compilation of people that have demonstrated their lives and in their work. And I'm going to read from my page. The feature put me in there, and I'm going to read my opening paragraph, which kind of sets a tone, I think, for where I come from and where my life is. I'm from the rural Midwest. My small town high school graduating class was only 36 students. I pride myself on that upbringing of traditional values, which gave me an innate service heart. My father, Bill Sr., who I'll get to see next weekend, 89 years old, going strong, expected that every driveway of a senior citizen in the neighborhood is shoveled by one of his 6 sons and 3 daughters. We were not expecting a reward. As a matter of fact, if we came back with money that they had given us, we had to return. There was no expectation. As a matter of fact, if we brought back cookies, we had to share them. And if there were only 2 cookies, there were 9 of us. But the whole concept was that you give. And that's where, when you start to learn that, it's so important. In Leadership Tomorrow, I specifically had an experience that was at the Orange County Rescue Mission. And Scott Walker is a good friend of mine, has continued that. We worked together in business and it continued. But I had a very powerful experience. Went to the rescue mission. I think your class went this year, right? Yeah, good. So was there, and there was a call out for tutors. My wife's the teacher. I'm not a teacher. I didn't know what to do, but they just were encouraging people. So I went over and spent an evening. Started one, and I went through the summer. And they were talking about math. And I'm not a math guy. But we sat around a table, and after about 6 weeks, we were going to do an exercise where people were learning what discounts were. And so I said, okay, you're walking into a store, and these are the things you're buying, and then these dots mean this is the discount from them. So you figure out how much your bill is going to be. And so we sat at the table, and about halfway through, this was about halfway through, I said, don't forget, there's 8% sales tax. So you gotta add that back in. And so we went through the process. I realized I just pulled it off the top of my head, and so I had to figure out what the answer was. And I figured out, put it on my table, and the lady across from me reached out and said, what's the answer? And I said, I'll tell you in a minute, let's get everyone up here. So I really need to know. And so I showed her and just put it back, and she started crying. This is a 3rd grade dropout, homeless, 5 children that she kept together. She had never understood what a discount meant. She had never understood sales tax. She would walk, when she went into the store, she had an idea of what things were. She had 2 things in her cart, and if she had enough money, she kept putting it on there. If she had no money, she just stopped. Whatever what was there didn't go forward. She said, I now understand. This is a mid-30s woman. We just think about, when you think about the power of that, it's just a matter of a sliver. So I want to weave in another story and come back. I was in the Coast Guard, as Kathy shared, thank you, was in 1975 is when I started. Let's not do age thing. So, is that was not a time to be a veteran. If you've heard stories, or some of us in the room may have lived through it, it was not the time to be a veteran. So when I went through the service, even my dad and all of us were all buzz cuts. He had hair over his ears during that time. Military guys did, and we just did. And you were looked down upon. There were terrible things that were said. And as we went through that, when I got out of the service, the first thing I did was start growing my hair, and I let go of it. I was not a veteran. I just didn't even think about it being a veteran. I just remember that's something I did before. About 10 years ago, I was on a Southwest Airlines flight on Veterans Day, and they made the announcement that for veterans can stand up and get boarding, in group 2 or whatever. It's like, yeah, I guess I am a veteran. I'll stand up and get pre-boarding or whatever. And I stood up, and there were about 15 of us. And the entire airport broke into applause. I've never experienced anything like that. I've never experienced anything like that. But I said, I am a veteran. I am a veteran. I can be a veteran. I can own that veteran. And where am I going to put my passion? I've known that. About that same time, the Orange County Rescue Mission was opening an organization called the Veterans Outpost for homeless veterans. So I started working with that group of people. And then it kind of quickly branched into other things as was announced. But so the whole purpose, my whole background is for veterans. I want to take us and weave back a little bit into what we just went through with, putting you on the spot, I forget your name already, but is that I want to take us serious here for just a moment. I'll come back, I promise. We hear about the 22 veterans a day committing suicide. Actually, if you really look at that, the number of veterans that are on the streets today, homeless, is inordinately higher compared to every other organization. And those people that pass on the streets because of drug addictions, if you start to add those in, the number is astronomically high. But that's what we hear about. There's other parts of society as well. The Surgeon General just said that the highest form of death right now is loneliness. And we're all there now. And in the military, and I'm sure in first responders, I'll just glance at your shoes. I'm not a first responder, but in the military we have battle buddies. And that's whatever it's used, you have somebody, and that person is somebody that you can call at 2 o'clock in the morning. You can do something today. So when you have anybody, everyone in this room can make a difference today. Number one, think about who your battle buddy is, because those thoughts typically come at 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when everything is just piling on. The morning tends to be brighter, but at 2 o'clock in the morning, things are just rough. Who would you call? Make that decision today. Just look out around the room. I would probably call Scott, because I know he would take my call. He'd say, why in the heck don't call me at 2 in the morning, but he would pick up the call. Yeah, he'd probably still be up, yeah. So the point is, there's that. But further than that, where you can make a real difference is everybody knows somebody who's a little down, who's a little offbeat from where they usually are. Just say, hey, you know, if you ever need to talk to somebody, I'll pick up your call. You don't have to make a big deal of it. You don't have to say, hey, I'll be your bad buddy, I'll do this, and I'll do that. And you don't have to do anything other than take the call. So every one of us can make a difference today. You can have real impact on this social issue that's hitting us all. And it's really surfacing. And the thing is, what I believe is that it's been there. It's now just surfacing to be talked about. We had battle fatigue, past ones, you know, a soldier's heart, you know, all those different things for past wars. You know, now it's PTSD. So it's all there as coming out. So I want to come back out and talk about a bit about Team Rubicon. And the thing is, with Team Rubicon, as a local leader, watch Roku channel coming up in the next week. If you haven't seen Team Rubicon, you will know all about it. And so own Team Rubicon. That's the hat I have now. You know, that's the hat I'm wearing now. The LT doesn't have caps, but so I shifted over to this one. And it's a passion. If you have any interest and want to discuss it, anyone can find it. I want to wrap up with, you know, we made reference to Holly once before earlier, and I appreciate that, is that Holly makes it very clear to me, because I do a lot of stuff, you know, and she repeatedly says and reminds me that she will support me in anything I want to do, anything, as long as they appreciate me. She says, and she has. There's been times where I come home grousing, complaining, and she said, you know, that's not the place to put your time. Put where you're appreciated. And know that you are appreciated by LT and by the community. And you're here for a reason. Thank you.